Dear students, welcome back to this video series where we'll be discussing about the application questions for our Emath Paper 2. The question that we have here today is taken from our 2017 O-level paper. Right, so let's look at the question together. So in this question, we have this person, Nuru, and she's planning a weekly exercise routine. Okay, so basically what she's going to do is to go for 3 brisk walks each week. Okay, so 1 week 3 times, and basically the map below over here shows her route, okay, which she walks around this local reservoir. Okay, so in addition to this map, the map scale is also given. 1:20,000. So take note that the units for both numbers are in cm. So 1 cm on the map represents 20,000 cm on the actual ground. Okay, and the table here give us some information about optimal health benefits and some exercise related intensities. Okay, so if you were to pick up some of the information in the table, I've actually summarized it over here. These are the information which are more important, and you should be picking up all this information on your own as well. Okay, so the first information is that when you accumulate 1 minute of vigorous exercise, okay, is equivalent to accumulating 2 minutes of moderate intensity exercise. Okay, so for vigorous intensity exercise includes things like running, right? Whereas moderate exercise includes things like brisk walking or walking. Okay, and for a person to hit optimal health benefits, okay, for the person to achieve this, right, we should be looking at 75 minutes of vigorous or 150 minutes of moderate exercise per week. So you should be clocking this amount of time per week. Okay, and you also get the information that around 250 minutes of exercise is required to prevent weight gain, right? So if you were to look at the back to the picture over here, right, okay, we would be able to answer the first question, right? So the first question is asking us to estimate the length of Nuru's route. Okay, so how can we do that? Okay, since we're given, right, the map, so what you expect is that the distances in the map would be, okay, very accurate. So what you need to do in this case is to measure the line segments, okay, around this reservoir which represents her route. Okay, so using a ruler, okay, carefully try to measure it as accurately as possible. Okay, and in so doing, you realize that the sum of all of these line segments, okay, add up to around 28 cm. Okay, so that's 28 cm on the map. Okay, so in order for us to find the length, okay, which is the actual length in fact of Nuru's route, we have to make use of this map scale. Okay, so first of all, let's convert, right, 20,000 cm to km first. Okay, so in order to do that, 20,000 cm, I divide by 100 to convert it to meters, followed by another 1,000 to convert it to kilometers. Okay, and that would give us 1:0.2 km. Okay, so what happens now is that, as we have mentioned just now, the map distance, which is basically the length of all line segments in the given diagram, right? If you were to do it carefully, you realize that this is 28 cm. Okay, and of course, the length of her actual route would be given by 28 multiplied by 0.2, which gives us 5.6 kilometers. Right, so that's the actual route that Nuru takes to walk 1 round, okay, along the path that surrounds the reservoir over here. Okay, now we are done with the first part. Okay, let's look at the second question. The second question is this. They said that Nuru aims to walk at this speed, okay, 6.5 kilometers per hour. The question wants us to show or to explain if Nuru meets the weekly time target recommended in the health advice. Okay, so what is the weekly target time which we should be looking at? This is actually the important information over here, right? for her to actually hit optimal health benefits, right? By doing moderate intensity exercises, which in her case is actually walking, right, at this speed. Okay, so what we need to do is to actually compute, all right, the time she takes to walk around this reservoir. Okay, since we know the actual distance and we know her speed, it's quite straightforward, right? So the time taken is actually 5.6 divided by 6.5, right? That gives us 56 over 65 hour, right? So I would like to leave this quantity in exact form so it's more accurate. So the time spent on exercise per week, okay, right, is this time multiplied by 3 because she exercises 3 times a week, am I right? Okay, and we have to multiply further by what? By 60. Okay, we have to multiply further by 60 to convert this quantity over here to minutes. Okay, so that gives us 155 minutes, right? Okay, and finally we conclude that since she spends 155 minutes and is clearly more than 150 minutes of moderate intensity exercise in the health advisory, so clearly Nurul meets the weekly time target. Okay, so she meets because of this time she spent on her exercising. Okay, so we are done with part B. Okay, so now let's look at part C. Right, part C is 6 marks. Okay, the first 4 marks is given to part A and B. Right, so for this question you are expected to show a little bit more working, right, in order for you to get your full credit. Alright, but don't be deterred, okay, by the marks. Okay, you should be trying your best to do as many parts as you can for the question. Okay, so in this case, if you were to read on, right, the question said that, okay, instead of walking, she decides to jog. Okay, so she jogs the same route. So we are looking at 5.6 km. Okay, how many times a week? 3 times a week, right? So same as the amount of time she spent walking. Okay, so we also given her weight, which is 70 kg, right? And she estimates that her jogging speed will be 9.5 kilometers per hour. Okay, and she sees the following information from the internet, right, which is given in this table, which actually tells us the approximate calories that is being used, right, for 30 minutes of exercise, right? So since she weighs 70 kg, right, so we should only be focusing on this column over here, right? So the rest of the information are irrelevant, so do not, okay, focus your attention on them. So we should only be looking at this column, right? So she walks at a speed of 6.5 kilometers per hour. This is given in part A, right? And finally she jogs at 9.5 kilometers per hour, and this is actually given in this part C, right? So these are the two numbers that we should be concerned with. Okay, so now the question is asking us this. Okay, Nurul thinks that she will meet the time, or rather she will meet the target for time. Okay, this is the first thing that we should be trying to look at. And number 2, she will use more than double the amount of calories, right, when she jogs instead of walking. So what we need to do in this question is to be able to justify whether Nurul is correct, okay, for these two statements. Okay, so let's do the easier one first. Let's look at the target for time. Okay, so the time taken to run the route, okay, the same route, 5.6 km per hour, right? 5.6 km per hour. Okay, so based on the same route, she should be spending this amount of time, right? 5.6, the distance divided by the speed. Okay, and simplifying, we should get 56 over 95 hour. Okay, so the total time spent on running. So she runs the route how many times a week? Recall, she runs this route 3 times a week, right? So we have to multiply this quantity by 3, and of course multiply this by 60 as well to convert it to minutes. So giving us 106 minutes. Okay, so since, okay, 106 is more than 75, and 75 is actually what? 75 is actually this health advisory where they tell us that you should be spending 75 minutes of vigorous activities to obtain this to achieve optimal health benefits. So clearly she spent 106 minutes, right? Okay, which is clearly more than 75. Therefore, based on the target for time, she has definitely met it. Okay, so now let's do the last part. Let's settle the part on calories. Okay, let me rub this away. So for the calories, right, let's calculate how much she spent, how much calories would she actually use if she walks. Okay, so for walking, 30 minutes represent 150 calories, am I right? So 30 minutes represent 150 calories, so clearly 1 minute represents 5 calories, right? And if she would take this amount of time to walk, okay, so clearly the amount of calories she would have spent to walk one round is this amount, okay? And the total calories she used for walking, right, this amount multiplied by 3 because she walks 3 times a week. Okay, so let's see the answer, right? So multiply by 3 and we get 775.384 calories spent, okay, used for walking. Okay, so now let's consider the running. Okay, so when she runs, okay, we should be looking at this quantity, 345 calories used per 30 minutes of exercise. So 30 minutes represent 345 calories. 1 minute represents 345 divided by 30, right? And this is the time she takes to run one round. So it represents this amount of calories multiplied by this time. But we need to multiply by 60 because this is in minutes, right? I hope you realized this is in hours. So 56 over 95 multiplied by 60 multiplied by 3. And that will be the total amount of calories which she would spend, okay, she would use for running for this whole week. Okay, so this amount of calories will be spent, okay, when she runs one round, and you multiply that by 3, that will be the total calories, right, used for running for that week. Okay, so if you were to press this out, you should get 1220.2103. Okay, so we get this amount. Okay, and in order to answer the question, we want to check whether she would use more than double the amount of calories if she were to run instead, right? If she were to run. Okay, so dividing this amount by 2, we realize that this is clearly lesser than this amount over here, which is the total calories used when she walks, right? So indeed, since this is lesser, she does not use, right, more than double the amount of calories while running instead of walking. Okay, so I hope that you've understood this question, and all the best for your revision.